it was just so magical. And then I was a flight attendant myself.
Did you follow in Mom's footsteps?
I did.
You're like, Mom, can you hook me up with a gig here?
So she was retiring. I had just retired from wrestling at the tender age of 19. Didn't know what I was going to do with myself. And she was handing in her resignation. She was like, well, I hand in your resume. I was like, sure, you might as well. And then lo and behold, here I was. And we would stay just up the road in the Sheraton there, right in Times Square. And so it's crazy. And then I was working in a bar on 50th between 9th and 10th called Hibernia when I was in between my first and second year of college. So just so much of my life has rotated around the city.
What were you doing in the bar? Bartending?
Bartending
you
and
bouncing?
waitressing. No, I was not bouncing. I was not bouncing. But if anybody got out of hand.
When do you retire from being a flight attendant? Like, how do you know it's time to... Because that seems like a job you could kind of do forever.
Yeah, I mean, if you're into that sort of thing.
Right.
I didn't love it. So I was there for 2.5 years. I wanted to do different things with my life, but the job is so all-encompassing. Like with WWE, you're gone all the time. Your schedule is so demanding. And it was hard for me to take up any other hobbies. And having been so dedicated to something like wrestling before that, I knew what it was like to have a passion. And at that time, I didn't have it for anything and I needed it, you know? Now, I wanted to try and find it, and that's why I left. So I went back to college, yeah.
And that's why you started doing all kinds of jobs, just to feel like something's got a spark here.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. And I felt like, and it's crazy because I've kept journals my whole life, right? And I remember writing down that I just want to make a mistake. I just want to have a big giant mess up just so that I can feel like I'm doing something, like I'm alive, because I felt like I was doing everything to the letter and to the T and by the book, and it just was so unfulfilling.
And it just stays, it's like one like solid line the whole time. Like there's no back against the wall. There's no real reason to do anything. It's just existing.
Absolutely. Yeah. Exactly. And it just felt so flat, like I was flatlining. And that's why I need to get out of here. I need to do something that sets my soul on fire like the way wrestling did. And lo and behold, here I am. But it's crazy because I guess that's how the Becky Lynch character felt, right?
Right.
Like she was doing everything right, everything by the book and just existing in WWE.
And it's time to take a risk and make a big heel turn and screw the audience, screw everybody. It's my time.
Absolutely.
Right.
Heel turn. I don't know what you mean by that. I think I just went from a non-believer to a believer.
Right.
Exactly.
That's why I love it. Now, why did you quit at 19?
Long story. Long story, but let's make it a short story.
Yeah.
So at the time, I became obsessed with getting into the WWE, right? As a teenager, but at the time they didn't want girls that looked like me, or so I was told, and not by any reliable source. Right? It was another fellow independent wrestler.
Just another guy who also couldn't get in?
Yeah.
That was like, nah, they don't want you. I couldn't get in. They don't want you. They don't like girls like you.
They don't want girls like you.
Yeah.
Is exactly what they said. And so I was like, well, I'll make them want girls like me, right? So then I started bodybuilding and I got emaciated, right? And I did it all wrong. And at that time then I wasn't training as much in the ring. I was just concentrated on eating my freaking 4 ounces of chicken or whatever it was, and with that, I just, every bump I took just got more and more painful because I had nothing to protect me, and
because you hadn't built you didn't have a wrestling body.
Yeah, I didn't have a wrestling body, and I was skinny, and had nothing to protect me. And then my visa ran out in Canada. It was just a perfect storm of just things not working out, and I was back home in Ireland, and my mom was like, well, what's your plan? And there's no plan with wrestling. You don't know when the call is going to happen, and when you're sitting at home, you're not earning money, and my mom just wanted me to get my life together. And she's like, what's your plan? I'm like, well, I'm trying this thing. And then anyway, I got hurt in a match in Germany, and I came back wearing sunglasses. I was all busted open, like freaking hanging out the side of my head. She's like, what the hell are you doing wearing sunglasses indoors? I was like, I'm a rock star. She's like, take them off. I was like, oh, Darn,
How did you get?
them off.
What was it that damaged your face to that
I
extent?
suplexed a girl onto my head. So, in a moment of aggression, what happened was the crowd started chanting women's wrestling, and it wasn't in the sense that they chant it now. It was in a derogatory sense.
Oh, like this is
Yeah,
like we're not here for this.
This
Yeah.
is terrible.
Right.
It's like, well, I'll show you.
Right. And as it turns out, it was pretty terrible.
Yeah, it was awful.
Yeah.
So I suplexed her. And she held on to me because she was scared. I was like, oh, damn. And she landed on my face.
So
and
her
my
head
eye
just lands on your eye socket?
Yeah.
Oh.
My eye just busts open. I get up the top. There's just blood. All I can see is red. And yeah. So anyway, so I come back. My mom's like, "Will you please give up? Will you please give up?" I'm like, oh,
Always what you want to hear from a good parent.
yeah, like just come on. Like, what are you doing with your life? Blah blah.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, I'm trying to come up with a plan B. So at the time, I was like, okay, well, let me go to Orlando. Let me do a personal training course. So then at least I have a plan B. And anytime you do a plan B, it always becomes plan A, right? You take your focus off the prize. And that's what happened. I ended up in Orlando, not realizing you need a car to get around and things like that, or money.
Right.
Apparently, you need money as a person.
We need money to get the car.
Yes.
And then you also need money to put in the car so that you drive places and there's money.
Absolutely.
Right.
And to eat and things
Right.
like that. And,
Right.
exist. So anyway, I end up in Orlando and I don't know what to do with myself. I become very lost. I become very depressed and very confused. And I'm 19. I'm out on my own and I didn't have a support system. I didn't have it. And I just shied away from wrestling. I couldn't
Because it had betrayed
face the
you.
world. Yeah.
It was your dream and then it didn't work out. And you were like, well, this thing used to be so good to me and now it makes me feel so bad.
Well, I don't know that I ever felt that about wrestling. But I certainly felt that about myself.
I see.
And I certainly felt that a lot. And even coming into WWE, my goodness. How many times did I say W right there?
I don't know. When the Irish kicks in, I hear it with Sheamus too. I'm like, I don't know if he pronounces every syllable of that word, but you get the gist.
Yes, yeah. So anyway, so even when I came into WWE, NXT, in NXT, like I felt just this tremendous amount of guilt because I felt like, and I remember meeting Sami Zayn, and Sami Zayn was on one of my last tours, and he had been wrestling the entire time, pursuing his dream, and there I was, who had given it up for 7 years, and I was in the same spot, and I felt like fraud. I felt like, oh, I don't deserve to be here. I turned my back on my passion and what I loved and this business because I couldn't face it because I had some demons to face. And so I felt like I shouldn't have been there. Like I felt like I had to pay penance. And I did that to just too much of an extent, for the first long while that I was in WWE.
How long did it take for you to shake that off?
Oh, man, at least a year, but I think it's been ongoing.
Wow.
And certainly, the first few years took
It
a
was
while.
there.
Yeah, it was there. Just that guilt that I had this passion, I had this dream, and I gave up on it.
And all these other people have been sitting here paying their dues the whole time, and
Yeah.
I walked away, and now I get the same opportunities.
Absolutely.
So did you start working? Like, how do you
What
handle that?
right do I have?
Right. So do you start working like twice as hard as everybody else? Do you?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. But here's the other thing: is I think then what the great thing about it is, if I didn't walk away, and this is what would happen, was that I realized where I was the perfect time with the perfect group of people, because NXT was really on the come up and it was something special and you could feel that. And if I hadn't walked away, I wouldn't have been there at that exact moment, and then I wouldn't have been with Sasha and Bailey and Charlotte.
Right.
It wouldn't have been the four horsewomen, and so it all felt very serendipitous, but it allowed me to be so unbelievably grateful. And I would sit in my apartment and sometimes I would cry. Yes, the champ cried.
But that was before she was the champ.
That was before she was the champ.
Right.
That was
Becky would
before-
cry. The champ
Yeah,
doesn't cry.
The champ doesn't
Okay,
cry.
good.
Unless she's something really moving, like a three-legged puppy or something. But yeah,
He
so
still gets around. He's so strong. He's look at him go. The spirit.
I identify with that
Yeah.
spirit. Yeah, and just about the fact that wrestling was affording me the groceries in my fridge and the roof over my head. And
that money that we were talking about before.
The money.
You were actually getting some.
That had eluded me before
That's
the
right.
last